Hi everyone! Thanks so much for joining me in the first episode of my Finding Your Fit series, where I'm teaching you about what clothing and sizes work best for you. Now, if you haven't watched my video before this, I did have like a little intro video that talks about why finding your fit is so important. So I highly recommend checking that out just so that you have a little bit of background and understanding about why I'm doing this series and why it's so important for you to know all these things. But in today's video, we're hopping on and talking about how to find your fit in tops. So this is something that you're wearing probably almost every day. More often than not, you're probably in a top versus a dress. And it can be really challenging nowadays to find tops that fit you because of what we talked about in the first video, which is that insanity sizing, where you're probably going to find tops in your closet that range from an extra small to a large maybe because of how different store sizing has gotten. So in this episode, I'm going to go over with you how to find your fit, what to look for, and even some tips on where to shop for specific things based on your body type. So let's hop right in. So like I said, the first big thing to know is that you're not alone. When you go into stores right now, things are cut like boxes. Almost all places are cutting things like these boxy squares that are shorter and wider and don't really work for anybody, so I'm not quite sure why they're doing it. And so you're not alone when you go into a store and know that. You really have to pick and choose and find the right retailers that are cutting things, or at least have one cut of something that will work. And so in addition to that is that insanity sizing. So one thing to know is even though you have your measurements, and we're going to go over taking your measurements so you kind of know what your numbers are, when you go into a dressing room, do not worry about the label and what it says and what the size is, and you're going to need to bring probably 2 to 3 different sizes in there with you. Because an extra small or a small in one thing is going to be a completely different size in another brand. And so just go in prepared and knowing that if you walk into the dressing room and you find a shirt you like, grab a couple sizes unless you know for sure how you fit into certain brands, which I'm thinking a lot of people really don't know that. And the brands can constantly change how they're cutting things. So it's best to just be prepared versus getting into the dressing room and being super frustrated. So once we have got that all figured out, then we're going to go on to knowing your measurements. This is really important. So if you have one of these guys here, this is going to be really helpful for you. And I do have accompanying worksheets like always where you're able to know exactly what you're measuring and write these measurements down and have them on hand for you. So make sure you grab those. If you're watching here on YouTube or on Instagram, you can click the link to get to my website and get those. If you are watching on my website already, then you'll see the link right below me in order to get these worksheets so that you can write these measurements down. But the first thing and one of the most important things when it comes to fit is making sure that the thing fits you in your shoulders. Because you want to think of your body kind of like a hanger, where wherever it hits here, it's then going to fall mostly properly from there. So if it doesn't fit in your shoulders, then it's definitely not going to fit in the rest of your body. And if something fits in your shoulders at least, you can get the rest of it taken in. So sometimes people suggest buying things where it fits you in one way and you can get the rest tailored in the other ways. So something to consider. So when you're measuring, you want to measure your shoulders. You're measuring from the ends of your shoulders. So the seams should hit right here at the ends, and that's where you're going to measure from. Now, you might need somebody to help you with this measurement, or you can just be really good. Put one end here, one end there, get it right to the end, put your finger there, and make sure it is straight, and then you can pull that out, and you can see where you're at. So I'm at about between probably around a 16.5 is where my shoulders are. Around 16, I'd say. Let's see. Yeah, actually I'm right about 16. So you want to make that measurement, and they always say, measure twice, and in making things, measure twice, cut once. We're not cutting here, but we just want to make sure we're getting the right size shirt. So make sure to do 2 measurements. I'm at about 16, and I'm doing right from the end to end. So once we've done that and we've gotten our shoulders, then the next thing you want to do is your chest. And so when it comes to your chest, you actually want to be above your chest here. So it's like right above, kind of right where your armpits are. What I recommend is taking it, wrapping it around like this. You're gonna wrap it here nicely. What I recommend is getting it nice and tight at first, and then taking a deep breath, and that's the measurement you want to take, because if you think about it, you don't want to be in a shirt that is too tight, which would be like your really tight up measurement. So you're going to take it here, put it, and then take a breath. And so I'm around a 33 and a half, a 34 when I'm being comfortable, which if you think about is probably also the equivalent size for whatever bra you're wearing. So whatever your measurement is around there is probably going to be the same or close to the same measurement you get here. So like I said, if I pull tight, I'm a 32. If I take a deep breath, I'm around 33 and a half, 34. So you want to write that measurement down so we know your chest, so we make sure that these shirts are fitting you comfortably. After we get your chest, our next thing is going to be our waist that we want to have a measurement for. So one thing, your waist is going to be the smallest part of your body. And a way to find your waist, if you don't quite know where that is if you turn to the side and bend, your body's going to naturally crease where your waist is. So you can kind of bend over. My crease is about right here. So that is where I'm going to move the tape measure to. Now this measurement can be a bit tighter. Don't worry about having to do that breathing thing, because it's going to be pretty accurate here, because you're never going to be exactly tailoring a shirt to your waist unless something is really form-fitting. But when we're talking about tops, most of our tops, we want to fall within the line of our shape and kind of skim it, but mostly we're not wearing skin-tight things. So you are going to take that, and I'm at about 27, I'd say. Seems to be pretty comfortable. If I take a deep breath, I'm at 28. If I pull it back again, I'm at about 27. So I'm going to write that down. All right, after we've gotten that, now we're going to go for our hips. And so when I do hips, I definitely have to remind myself that your hips are a bit lower than you realize. When you do it, you kind of want to make sure you get some of your butt into it, or maybe it's just because I have a butt that I have to get my butt into it. But it's going to be a little bit lower. I've got jeans on right now, and you can see that I'm a bit lower than my belt. So I'm going to put my shirt back down there and get that measurement. So typically a bit bigger than you think, and I'm at about 35 and a half. And so that's what you want to know there, so that when we are looking at our shirts at the bottom, we make sure that they fit real comfortably, that they're not too tight down here. You want to make sure you've got room for that. So I'm at about a 35. The last thing that you want to measure for, and this is, going to be specific to wearing your tanks and your short sleeve shirts. Obviously, we're going to need to measure length also in the arms if we're talking long sleeve. But something to think about is measuring from the top of your shoulder down to where you want the length of your shirt to hit. So for me, I'm typically looking at a shirt between around like a 24 to 25 in a length to be comfortable. Now my recommendation for length is that you make sure that your shirt hits about mid-hip, or if we're making this a little bit more specific, about middle of the top and bottom of your crotch. No better way to say it. That's just how I'm going to go with it. You basically, most of the time you don't want your crotch completely covered, because then we're looking at more of a tunic. You'd see how that would wrap around me here. This shirt is definitely hitting me a little bit longer, and something that'll dictate length a little bit is going to be the fabric that you have. So the shirt I'm wearing now is more cottony. It's a little flowier, looser, but when I'm in a more polyester, more structured shirt, I like it to be closer to that 24. And another thing to know about that when you are looking at the shirt length is, raise your arms up. If you're starting to show belly, then you're going to be uncomfortable in that shirt, and it's going to be too short for you. So for my height and my proportions, I'm looking around between a 24 to 26-ish in length. So take that measurement down, and then do the arm raise. And then also you can measure from the bottom of your crotch to where you want that shirt to hit, or, vice versa, just so you get some sense in length. Another thing I've done too is I've put on my favorite shirts and I've measured how long those are, just to get a sense. Again, fabric will kind of dictate that a bit, so you might have something hit you one way in one fabric and then the length is different in another fabric, and so it'll hit you differently. So fabric makes a difference, but that's how we can get length there. And then the last measurement that we are going to take if we've got obviously long sleeve shirt on is going to be the length that you want it to be. So when we are measuring the length of a shirt, we want it to hit about where your wrist bone is. I say before your wrist bone, and when I say that, I mean this side of your wrist bone, not this side of your wrist bone. So we want it to hit right about here. That's where my wrist bone is. So I'm going to measure. Again, you might need somebody's help with this, but an easy way to do it is end of your shoulder, and then kind of let it fall down your arm, and then down here I'm holding it at the bottom. So I'm going to hold it down here at the bottom, and then I'm going to have to just kind of eye up where it hits me. So if I leave it right where it is, you can take a mark here, and I'm at about 20. So the length I'd want to be is between 20 and 21, depending on the type of shirt and how long you want it. And so that's a measurement you'll want to know, especially if you are either petite or tall, because if you're petite, then typically sleeves are going to be much too long on you unless you get a petite. And if you're tall, then you probably have the issue of things being too short. So you want to take that measurement, because then if you're shopping online and you know that your measurement is 20 and the sleeves are 30, then obviously you know it's going to be too long on you and you're either going to need to get it tailored or maybe that's not the shirt for you. So that is all of our measurements. Another thing to know about fit when it comes to shirts, and another little trick, is to do the arm cross. So the shirt I'm wearing now, it's got actually some extra room, and like I said, it's this cotton material, so it's a bit stretchier than a polyester. But if you cross your arms like this, especially in a short sleeve or a long sleeve shirt, and you have pulling in the back, so think vertical lines in the back, then that shirt's too small for you. It's probably too small for you in the chest most of the time. It could be too small for you in the shoulders as well. Those are the two factors you'll want to think about there. But doing that arm test will really help you see if something fits and fits properly and is comfortable. Another thing to look for things that would be too small is in the armpits. So if this armpit was really tight up here, especially in a short sleeve or a long sleeve shirt, the issue with this is, and this is big for me, and I think it is for most people too, is that it can increase the amount of sweat you have, and it will definitely show your sweat marks. And so for me, that's a big no-no. I don't want to have that issue because I will sweat, and so I don't want to do anything to increase sweating or showing my sweat. So something to think about is making sure that the armholes fit you well and you've got enough space so that it's comfortable. Let's see, what else do I have? Oh, fabric. So we've talked about fabric. Depending on the fabric, you want to try a bunch on, see how they all fall and hit you, and then take notes of that so that you know which fabrics are best for you. So for example, you might want to have a fabric that's a bit stretchier. If you have a larger chest, it can be easier to have stretch in the fabric there. If you need to be dressier, I always talk about that polyester shirt material. That's a great dressy shirt material. But let's say you do have that larger chest and you want to wear that, then you want to look for other details that help with fit, like darts. So a dart is a measurement that you'll find a little kind of seam right here, and it just allows a little extra room in the chest. Another thing to know about fit and finding things that fit you well in terms of tops are going to be necklines. And so again, going along the lines of if you have a larger chest, I typically recommend either a scoop or a V-neck, because as I've said in other videos, the best way to describe it is we don't want a boob shelf. If you have something that's a higher neckline and you have a larger chest, you're going to create this big shelf right here. And unless you have maybe a necklace, which typically that doesn't even help you very much to offset it, then you're going to have just this shelf and it's not going to be great for you. So you want to do a scoop neck or a V-neck if you are a larger chest. Typically with petites, I find that a split neck, which is a form of a V-neck, is great for them too, to just give you some proportion. And I'd say if you're, average, and I put average in quotes because no one is really average, but if you're relatively average, then you can probably go with any neckline. So something to consider for you there. All right, let's see. We talked about armpit tightness. The last thing to think about is where to shop if you are a little bit more let's say, specialized in sizing. So if you are petite or if you're tall, you're obviously going to have some issues with finding shirts that fit you properly. And so some places to think about, if you're petite, there are not a ton of petite options for you in terms of shirts, but the place that has the best petites in petite sizing is Loft and Ann Taylor. Time and time again, I take my petite clients there. We find them great dress shirts and things like that, and they fit them well, and the proportions and the sizing isn't too boxy. They're pretty much form-fitting, so look there. If you're a tall lady, then that means you're either tall or you have a long torso, and so sometimes pieces that are meant for tall people will fit you because they'll have the extra length, but sometimes they won't. And so something to think about there is making sure you've got that good measurement and that you compare that to shirts online. One brand that is great that I take a lot of clients to at Nordstrom Rack is Pleony, and they typically have longer shirts. And so on a person like me who is petite, it's way too long and it looks like I'm wearing a tunic. But on you, it should fit you well and fit in your torso. So those are two brands to look for if you are specialized sizing. But just remember, take all these measurements, use your little measurement tool here, get a friend to help you if you need, use those worksheets to mark down all the measurements. Take note of the fabrics that work best for you, they lay best on your body and feel comfortable. And then remember your necklines too, because that will help with proportions and finding pieces that fit you best. Now, our next episode is going to be all about dresses. So if you love wearing dresses, if you struggle wearing dresses because you can't find ones that fit you, you're definitely going to want to tune in and click on that video. That video is going to go over specific silhouettes, so types of dresses that are best for your shape, as well as all the different measurements you need to take in order to get wearing a dress right. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know, and I'd love for you to comment and let me know what was the #1 thing and your favorite thing that you learned in this video. And I hope that it's helping you find your fit properly when dealing with this crazy industry here. Thanks so much, guys, for joining me. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye!